Chrissie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Austin.
I'm excited to have you here. I think you are one of the people that has been, one of the few people that I've met who's actually been to more countries than I have been to. We are both super passionate about travel. I would like to start there. I know that since travel has been a huge part of your life, you are traveling right now. We're talking you're in Hawaii. How many countries have you traveled to? And when did you realize that you were so excited by travel?
So I've been to 104 UN recognized countries. And I'm obsessed with it. I love traveling, and obviously COVID has been hard because it's been harder to get around. I've, through my work in corporate fashion, I was a trend forecaster, concept designer in New York. So I was traveling a lot for about 12 years straight out of college. And that's when I started really kind of like getting into it more. And then also wanting to explore like kind of off the beaten path places. And then when I was younger, my family, we lived in Hong Kong when I was a kid. So I got some exposure to, living abroad, and I was really interested in other places and smells and food and sights and stuff like that. So I think it's always been a big part of my life.
You said UN recognized countries. What have you been to other places not UN recognized?
Yes, there's countries that are not UN recognized. I think, let's see. There's also countries that are like, say like the Virgin Islands or British Virgin Islands is part of, or Aruba is Dutch. And then, Taiwan, Palestine, those countries that are kind of a little bit more, not necessarily recognized. So, yeah, so there's a couple there that
you've been to that are not recognized.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to dive in and talk about Love Is Project, but I'm interested where, like, if you, since COVID's put a halt on a lot of your travel, where are you itching to go? What's your top spot that you want to head out and hop on a plane and get back to?
I launched Love Is Project from Bali, and I was living there at the time, and I really love Bali. It feels like, home to me. So I really can't wait to get back once they open the international airport and the borders again. Another place I've been wanting to go the past few years, but I just haven't had time because I was so busy with work. I'd love to get to Papua New Guinea at some point. So I'd like to do that too.
Oh, as would I. I want to do some diving down there. I've heard it's some of the best in the world. But Chrissie, I would like to dive in. Talk about Bali. That's where you launched the Love Is Project. And I've got for people watching on YouTube, a Love Is Project bracelet right here. And Chrissie's book, The Greatest Love Story Ever Told, which talks a lot about how Love Is Project kicked off. But it's a very interesting story. I would love for you to share, what was the inspiration for the Love Is Project?
Yeah. So, again, I love travel, and my background is in the fashion industry. And I was kind of at like a crossroads, like wanting to leave corporate and kind of figuring out what I wanted to do and what I could do. And so I was, consulting. I was living in Kenya at the time I left corporate, and was creating products with the Maasai tribe out there, as well as other groups. And I created the original red bracelet. And the idea was to be able to find something that could scale and market and be able to help create a livelihood for the women there. With that, I had the idea. I was traveling the world soon after and on a plane to Russia, and I met these two girls, one from Uzbekistan, one from Kyrgyzstan, and I hadn't been there yet. And I decided to, we were talking about their countries. I was like, I have this idea. I have this red bracelet I made with Maasai. If you guys tell me what love means, I'll take a photo of you with it when we land in Moscow, and I'm going to do this for the rest of the trip. And sure enough, that's how everything started. So, a few months later, hundreds of people around the world had worn that first bracelet. And then I pitched it to my old company, which launched it as a social media campaign in their stores a few months later. And with the success of that, I felt like it had legs, and I decided to create a standalone brand out of it.
And that was 2017?
This was when I created it. It was back 2013, 2014. I was traveling around the world in 2014. And then, I created it in 2013, 2012. I forget, it's been a while. And then 2014, traveled the world and then pitched it. And then we launched it in 2015. And then I created a brand out of it beginning in January 2017.
And so 2017, that was when you were in Bali?
That's when I was still living in Bali. And that's when, I really realized, like, I came from the background of fashion, but before like digital marketing, before like Facebook ads, before all this kind of stuff. So how I thought about growing a brand was totally different than how things were being done. So I got schooled. One of my friends had told me about, all these e-com brands that were growing through Facebook ads and email marketing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do this. So I had to kind of like shift my like perspective and basically like, start e-com company. So, but it was kind of like accumulate. It was good because it was like, I felt like I was stuck. Like prior to that, I was like, okay, I had this concept, this idea that I knew had, resonated with people. I just didn't know how to really grow it. And, by just learning all this and the whole process, the past 4 years since I've met you, basically, like when I had no flows going on in my account for my emails, like it's just, a totally different game now. So.
Oh man. I mean, I'm excited to dive in and talk about a lot of the changes that you guys have. You've had an incredible amount of growth. I think this last year, especially, you've got a lot of momentum. When you were back in Bali, walk me through like, what were you doing back there? Like, what was your day to day as you were getting the business started? And what were you thinking about back then?
I thought obviously in my mind, I was like, oh, this will be great. I can just work remote. It'll be easy, or I can just live in Bali. Of course, that's not the case when you start a company. Obviously, in the beginning, it was good. I have friends who are really talented photographers who helped me shoot my first like campaign out there. I knew obviously people were working remote already there. So I had contacts of people I could reach out to, like someone to help run my Facebook ads in the beginning, kind of graphic design freelancers and whatnot. So I kind of was really scrappy. I just kind of started it there, and I had my contacts in Kenya at the time. So I was like, okay, let's create, I'll put in money to kind of get this up and running by January before Valentine's Day of 2017. And and I came back to the States, found a fulfillment center, got everything in there, squared away, and that's how everything started.
I think, when did we first get connected? Was it at Klaviyo Boston?
No, it was actually prior to that. I think we connected like 6 months into like when I started started as like brand. And we had like emails being sent, but we didn't have, the abandoned carts. We didn't have really the other flows that were, necessary to kind of, bring more money in. Basically, I was leaving a lot of money on the table, apparently. So,
well, and I remember we met in person at Klaviyo Boston. But I want to fast forward because you guys have had a crazy, impressive last year. And even like, if you dial it down to the last like 3-4 months, started in Bali, grown for the last 4 years. This year, you've had lots of stuff going on, including going on Shark Tank. I would love to hear from your perspective, from what is it actually like going on Shark Tank? When did the process start? How did you decide you were going to go on there? And what did you learn from that?
Yeah. So, I mean, that was kind of on the whim when I decided to apply to Shark Tank. Yes, I had heard of it, but I hadn't really watched it because I've never had a TV. So, and it was like last May or mid-May when my friends mentioned acquaintances that I met had been on Shark Tank and got like $1 million in funding from Daniel from Kind Bars. I was like, oh, wow, this is, interesting. Like, maybe I should check it out. So I just looked at the online application, which was pretty short. And then I was like, sent it in. And then I was moving out of my apartment in San Francisco. And then I was, things got hectic and I didn't check my voicemail and they called me and I forgot. And then at the end of June, they emailed me like, hey, do you still want to move to the next round? I was like, oh yeah, sure. And then had to submit videos, like applications, due diligence, like for the next 3 months, it was like, full on like Shark Tank. And then I also had to watch every episode of Shark Tank because I had never watched it before. So
where do they film? Is it in LA?
They normally film in LA, but this year, because of the pandemic, they filmed in a bubble at the Venetian in Vegas. So we had a lot of testing before and there and quarantining before we presented. And normally like in a year, I wouldn't have the time to actually even go on Shark Tank because I'm like running around doing the trade shows, I'm doing shoots and product development. But because of COVID, I was locked down and, in the States. And it was good because I was like working on the business, shoring up things and getting us to a better point. So I actually had time to actually apply and I was like, okay, let's do this and we'll see what happens. And sure enough, like, they called us and we went through each of the rounds and then they flew us out to Vegas to film in September. So it was really from when the time it aired and when I applied, it was like 6 months or 7 months. So it was pretty quick.
What is it like when you get to the Venetian and you're kind of getting ready to go? What is that process like? Do you just pop in and you're on camera? Is there a prep? Is it a whole day? Are you waiting? What does that look like?
They let you know what day you're going to film, because that's why they fly you out, and the timing and stuff. But the order of the show you don't know right away, and then I think you're just practice and stuff, your pitch, and you're practicing maybe questions they're going to ask you, but you really have no idea, because it's just it is one take. You go in and you present, and there's no redos and stuff. So
when the cameras were on, what did it feel like?
It was really nerve-wracking. It was like, I mean, I'm pretty easygoing to talk, but it is intimidating because I've never pitched to investors. I've self-funded my company. I have presented before, like at my old company, to people on the team, but it was like never high stakes like this, and especially on national TV. So it just adds a whole nother layer of pressure, and hoping that you don't mess up and you don't stutter or things like that. So
did you go in with like a mindset of like, I want to get a deal, like this is the type of deal that I want? How did you think about that before starting things off?
Yeah, I was hoping, I was really positive. I thought like our message, love, resonates with the world right now, and what we need with all the crazy things happening, and creating jobs for women. I think this is also really important. So I was hoping that I saw, maybe something in it for each of the sharks, possibly. So, but you really don't know what they're, what they want sometimes. So, I think, with that, like I did a lot of research on all the backgrounds of the sharks. I Googled them. I listened to their podcasts. I listened to their interviews. I read so much, because I actually felt like I actually knew them. So it was fun. That was funny. Like I was showing up in the tank. I sat there. I'm like, oh, I know so much about you guys. I'm like, am I a stalker? No. So.
No, you're doing your due diligence and trying to figure out what you wanted. What type of an impact did it have on your guys' business? I think that's something that I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, and Shark Tank is one of the things. Like this is going to be interesting and maybe change the trajectory of the business. What was the impact for you?
Well, we didn't get a deal, but I think it really worked out for the best, because, to restructure a company at 5% at $250K when we had the money in the bank, it didn't really make that much sense. And at the end of the day, we want to find, if we have a partner, we want to find someone who's really aligned with our mission and vision. But with Shark Tank, we ended up, that night did 10X in sales, which is amazing. And then, the following days we did, still really high, and for the following week or so afterwards. And we were able to leverage that with, our Facebook ads and other campaigns, after the showing. So I'm so happy we did it. It was a great experience, and just like an exercise, to go through all the applications, all the questions, and kind of, drilling down on all aspects of the business. That's awesome. And so it hasn't stopped there. You've been also have had stuff going on with Facebook. Could you talk about some of the recent press wins and what those have meant for you guys? Sure. Yeah. I mean, we've gotten other opportunities for other partnerships that will be coming down the pipeline shortly, which is great from that exposure. I also, one of the other great things, when I was doing research on A-Rod, because he was our guest shark, I saw that he was one of the judges for the Forbes Next 1000 list. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, maybe I should apply for this too. And then I got it. So, which is great, because I had A-Rod, I wouldn't have known about this other opportunity. And then Facebook, they reached out to us before Shark Tank, so they didn't know about the Shark Tank exposure, but they wanted to profile us for Women's Month for March, which is now. So the campaign just launched yesterday, and they filmed us a few weeks ago. So that's also another great another great platform, and since they want to highlight women who are doing good stuff for women. And so you guys get you get a lot of press, and it's, what do you feel like you can attribute that to, or what have you learned about garnering attention and press from starting your business and running over the last couple of years? Yeah, it's definitely hustle. It's kind of just seeing the opportunities out there. When I hear something on a podcast or something, or read something, I'm like, oh, this is interesting, I should just try. And, after doing a bunch of applications, you have kind of a framework, so you can kind of adapt everything for different applications. I feel like I'm at a good position right now, and our impact, and we have great content and what we're doing that I think it's relevant right now. So I think people are, see it and resonate with our mission. So. But I think the hustle too, it's like with the press, like I came from the fashion industry, so I do have some contacts in that. So I've leveraged some of that, as well as, when I'm doing trade shows, I'm reaching out to press, I'm meeting with them. So I am trying to get in front of publishers and whatnot. So. And
your message resonates too. Like it's a bigger purpose, which exactly. I think is strategic and works really well. Shifting to back a little bit to the actual nuts and bolts of growing the business, because you guys have gone through tremendous amounts of growth. I would love to hear about your experience with agencies, freelancers, especially early on the Facebook side of things. From my understanding, you guys dove in, hired some freelancers, had some growth, and then hit some trouble. What have you learned about working with freelancers?
Oh gosh, it's I think trial by error. I think we've found some people to work with, and obviously we have had successes and also things that haven't worked well at all, because in the beginning I didn't know anything about Facebook ads, so I just hired someone, and it's if you don't know what you're looking at, then you can get screwed over basically, and that's across anything. So I had to learn everything, try to learn everything. I was taking classes. My mother as well, she helps me with the business and operations and finance. So we were taking classes on Facebook. We were going to Klaviyo workshops. We were learning trying to learn everything on the fly, which is not always the best thing. If I could tell myself something, 5 years ago, I would have said try, learn this before you launch. But, once you're on the train, it's already out of the station. So you're uh-oh. So, and then I think the agencies since then, I mean, again, it's been ups and downs. We're still trying to figure everything out sometimes, but things have definitely stabilized more. And I think now this is the year, hopefully we can turn everything around and reach profitability.
Early on when you were working with the agency, what do you attribute, what was your personal experience with it? Did you guys drive sales and it was just not profitable? Was there a disconnect between the brand? What specifically did you face?
I think some of the agencies, they weren't even setting up the right type of campaigns, like top of funnel, middle, bottom, retargeting, DPA ads. It was not even, some of that stuff wasn't even set up properly. So the basics even. And then I think, some of the agencies with email was just there's just sending the campaigns, not really setting up the flows, not setting up, so it was frustrating because I knew we weren't quite there, but there was nothing I could, I could totally do about it. And then once we started, we took some things in house, and once we set up some of the flows better, things got better for that. And then with Facebook ads, it's hard because it's been kind of a moving target. So, they keep, sometimes things change a lot. And once you feel you're okay, I think we got this. And then you're oh no, wait, we don't. So it just keeps you on your toes. So just trying to, just create the right type of content. We have great assets videos, impact videos, UGCs, lifestyle shots. So we just try to, refresh things and keep it relevant and keepable, hope people like our photos and content.
How are you able to travel so much and run the business?
Wi-Fi technology everywhere. Basically, I can work anywhere. It's kind of funny.
No, I understand that. That's not technically, but as a often when people travel around and don't have a team, it can get challenging. What are some maybe the personal habits, the things that you try to do when you're traveling around to stay connected to people?
Well, I am on a lot of calls, Zoom calls. So it's and I can I'll do it anywhere, any time zone. So whether I have to wake up early or stay up late to do it, that's just one of the things I do so I can have the ability to be remote. And a lot of it's through emails or, where Asana, Slack, Trello, you name it, all those platforms. So I think we can communicate and get done whatever we need to do. So
how big is your team right now? And what does it look like? Contractors, non-contractors?
Yeah, it's me and my mother, and she's based in California. So when I go back home, I work with her sometimes. And then we have about maybe a handful of freelancers like graphic design, copywriter, and freelance, like the agencies. So we have our Google, Pinterest, Facebook, SEO, affiliates. So, and then, we just have calls like either bi-weekly normally.
What's something, as you've been on this journey for the last, more than 4 years, but 4 years since the brand kicked off, what's something that you wish you knew before you got started?
Well, I wish I knew Facebook ads. I wish I knew CRM. I wish I did all that correctly from the very beginning, because that would have been much more helpful. But my thing is too, I came from corporate. So you had a whole team helping you kind of execute an idea. And now as like a solo entrepreneur, you're responsible for everything. And like, I have a lot of ideas. I'm always jealous of people who are very linear thinkers. Like when I see people with like Excel chart, I'm like, wow, the Excel charts are all these things, like, oh, that's so orderly. But I like to just, get in and do stuff. I have an idea. I'm like, oh, like, this is great. And then with that, I overextend myself, and kind of can get stressed out because like, oh my gosh, like suddenly like I have all this more work, which I didn't plan on. So, and then, so I'm trying to be better about that. So like, okay, this year, these are the things I'm going to focus on. But then sometimes great things pop up or opportunities like Shark Tank. It's like, oh, I need to jump on that, and just ride that wave. So it's just kind of making sure you don't, you have some space in your schedule to accommodate for those things.
So you recently joined this first cohort of Intentional Wealth and are working with us. What are some of the things that you've learned from either that Intentional Wealth or from listening to the podcast and being connected over the last couple of years?
Yeah, sure. Why I joined, I've been listening to your podcast for years. I think it's super helpful and really great. And I always refer my friends to it, to also join or listen in. Because I think you don't know what you don't know. So I feel like there's always things to learn from other people. It's been helpful. I kind of researched some of the things that you talk about, or like some of your guests talk about. And I, whether or not we decide to implement, an app or this and that, like it's, we kind of reference that. And then with the Intentional Wealth, program, like what I'm really interested in, and I really want to do this year, and I am going to do, is hire help. So I can alleviate some of my workload and my mother's workload, and just so I can have a better balance in my life and also focus on what I'm better at, which is the creative. Because right now it's like I probably spend like maybe less than 10% of my time on that, because I'm weighed down with everything else.
You're very, very good at the creative side of the business. And to be able to build a lifestyle brand, you have to have some attention to creativity and that sort of thing. What advice do you have for other people who are trying to build a lifestyle brand or are trying to create better creative?
I think it's like, it should reflect your personality. I think essentially, this whole project, Love Is Project, is accumulation of my, love of travel, help, wanting to connect people and create. And, I think it's just diving into that. I've always, done shoots and prepped for things creatively for my old job too. So essentially it's just more of my personality coming through, and I love collaborating with other people. So in the countries I am, and I like meeting new people. So whether it's new photographers, new people locals doing interesting things, the whole idea is giving, highlighting the, uniqueness of each place. So it's something I already love to do, and to be able to see it actualized in the photos or in the book that you have. It makes me really happy, because I just feel like it's I've manifested kind of essentially, what I want to bring into the world. So
it's awesome. That's awesome.
And I think you should have fun. Like, I think that's the thing. It's like all this, like, that's when I'm having the most fun on my shoots and meeting people and like, having fun with it.
I think that when you are having fun, it also translates and other people get excited and want to join in. Right. And that's to your point about hiring help. I think that's the most interesting part of growing a business is actually like building a team and connecting with them. And the more fun you're having and the more connected you are to your work, the easier it is to hire people who want to show up and do the stuff. I mean, it sounds like you need to hire like an Excel legend, somebody who loves that to help you stay organized so you can go and do the stuff that you're really, really good at. Because other people are not, there's other people that don't have fun on a creative shoot. They're like, it's like the ultimate stress.
Yeah.
Chrissie, this is awesome. Where are you planning on taking things next? Like, it's a two-part question. What's keeping you up right now as an entrepreneur? And what are you excited about for the future with Love Is Project?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think, what keeps me up at night is, I feel like the to-do list is never ending, like I feel like there's just more and more things happening. And I'm like, as we keep growing, it's just going to be like this more. So I know, which causes me stress. Like I don't have anxiety like I used to about like, is the business going to succeed? I actually do. I feel strongly that is on the right track. We were doing all the right things to make this, sustainable. And I believe in it. So I think it's more just like the workload that makes me feel overwhelmed and just like, knowing that I'm going to be able to hire the right person. It's like dating, right? Or it's like basically getting married. So kind of like I need to make sure, and I'm not married, so I haven't gone through that process. So finding the right person to be like, a partner or someone to really, help grow the business. And maybe it's more than one person too. And we're going to find some interns too to help too. So
cool. What are some resources that have helped you? I mean, you mentioned that listening to the podcast and being connected to this, but outside of this, what are some resources that have helped you along your journey in the last couple of years? Well, your podcast has been really helpful. And also I listened to How I Built This by Guy Raz. I like to kind of hear like other stories because, it might look easy on the outside or the photos or your, Instagram highlights and stuff. But it's really, there's a lot of times when you're like, oh, my gosh, like, why am I doing this? I can't do this anymore. I have to hear other people's struggles and stuff. So and then I think, what's been great, is having other, I feel, Klaviyo, their workshops were really helpful in the beginning, too. I feel like we found a lot of other really supportive platforms, like even Shopify. We were one of the first people in their San Francisco office getting tutor like help and in LA. So I'm really thankful for all the platforms that have been out there and shown up for us and been really like rooting for us, like cheerleading for us, like in the very beginning. And then they can see like the success that we're having now. And they're like, yeah, I remember them. So, yeah. Awesome. Chrissie, thanks so much for hopping on here and chatting with me. For people who are excited, who want to connect more and learn more about what you're doing, what's the best place? Where would you direct them to go? Yeah, if you want to come check out more on Love Is Project, go to our website, which is loveisproject.com. We're also on Instagram and Facebook and all the other social media channels. Cool. Chrissie, thanks so much. Appreciate it. And I will talk to you soon. Awesome. Thanks, Austin.